What is up, everybody? How are we doing? Welcome to the Wishin' We Were Fishing podcast. Joined today with, as always, Matt England from England Expeditions and special guest, new team member, Chad Roger.
How y'all doing?
What's up, buddy?
Just enjoying the warm weather. I got in the truck a while ago and it read 97 degrees. So I'm in a pair of shorts and t-shirt, got the AC running. I was tired of the cold, but now I'm ready for it to come back.
Well, we could trade you. Me and Matt could come down there and you could come up here for a little while. We'd swap fish even too.
Yeah. So go ahead, Matt. You know, we want to talk about Matt's trip to Mississippi. I know he's got to go pick up Teddy. So you go ahead, Matt. You kick this one off.
Well, first, thank you for having me down for the second year in a row. This February 28th was our first day of Chad and I fishing again, calling it like the Mississippi Madness. We're going to focus on more than one lake. Of course, we hammered Grenada, but he wanted to introduce me to some of these other lakes. We got to go to the Northern District Fishery down there in Mississippi. Really neat. But day one was February 28th. We were in a 60-degree water temperature. We had a lake level of right at 208. So for Grenada, that's not too bad. You know, you can get on every boat ramp. We had one thing in mind. We wanted to break that 3-pound mark. I get to see Chad sending me pictures of these monsters all year long. And, you know, I'm just down there for a real short window. And that's why, you know, being there with Chad, he knows the pattern. He knows the water column. And he knows the baits and the presentation. So we can go over a couple numbers from day one. I got them wrote down here. The big fish of the day was a 240. We had a 141, 149, 143, 134, 156, 169, 189, 213, 235, 202, 180, 160, 145, 141, 160, 156. And we had a bunch of other fish that I would be putting on the, you know, I'll be writing on my handle of my rod here, you know, in the 130 to 150 range. And Chad didn't even want to worry about weighing, you know. We had a great pattern. We were in 5 to 7 foot of water. We were using a Lady May. That's that new guppy gobbler from Top Hat Jigs. And we're using the Alien, pretty contrasting colors. But those are two colors Chad's been having a lot of success with on Grenada. So when you go to someone's house, you listen to their rules. And we went to one of his main lakes, and it was go time from the jump. That was day one. I mean, Chad said we could have caught so we did start that day out. He said, hey, we're going to catch 5 fish to eat. We're going to put them on the grill tonight. I've never had grilled crappie. They were amazing. It took us, Chad, 20 minutes, 25 minutes?
Oh, it was less than that. We had our, you know, legal length is 12 inches. And I told Matt, I said, I'm looking for 12 and a half to 13-inch fish. And once we got those 5 in the first, I would say 15 minutes. Yeah. You know, we figured something out real quick and got those 12 and a half to 13-inch fish, which were perfect for the grill. And then we went bigger.
So we started chasing down those big monsters. Now, down there, are you open water fishing? Are you finding stumps? Or where are you guys pinning these fish at?
So I spend possibly 95% of my time on open water fish. What I have found with the real big fish is they they're kind of like old women. They get moody. They don't want to be around a bunch of small fish. So very rarely do I concentrate on brush piles. There are some lakes that I do concentrate on brush piles, like Ross Barnett, where you have trees and lay downs. I will concentrate mostly on those. But primarily, I'm looking for open water fish. The open water fish are the bigger fish, and that's the ones I want to catch.
That's the exact opposite of what Dustin and I deal with up here. You know, just yesterday, I was out there 2 days ago, excuse me. I was fishing laydowns with the owner of Top Hat Jigs, Derek Martin. We had 100, 200 fish on trees, and our good eater fish are sitting on the trees. And just like Chad was saying, like he spends most of his time in open water, and I got to learn a lot. Again, a lot. I learned a lot more this year trying to know what he was doing as opposed to getting introduced to his open water techniques. But the funny thing was, day one, we had 2 break-offs, 2 laydowns that were broke off, and we're in about 7 or 8 foot of water, and there were about 1.5 foot of standing timber. And they're like 2 posts. And Chad goes, "Hey, Matt, there's your big fish on structure. Go get it." And I pitched her out there because on those open water fish, if you don't bring it down and put it on their nose, you don't have a chance. But I had that fish in between those 2 break-offs down there, and the fish took up almost the entire slot. It was really neat. And I pitched it down there and got it right on its nose and pulled it out. And that was a 240, and that was kind of an anomaly, as Chad was saying, how it's pretty rare to catch those big fish. But I'm not wondering, and Chad, we might think about this now, she wasn't thinking about spawning. You know, she might be in that transition area. She's on the bottom. She might be moving up because later in the week, the last fishing trip that we had a fish. It had eggs oozing out of her. So I don't know why that female was on wood on the bottom and reactive. You know, those are things that typically we don't catch these fish in Mississippi, do we, Chad?
No, this year is different than years in the past. And when you go to the water, especially this time of year, you got to treat it as a new day and keep your mind open, because the bite you had yesterday may not be the same today. The conditions are constantly changing here in Mississippi. We got warmer temperatures. By the time Matt left, we saw 70-degree water. The water level, constant change in the core lakes, all these variables are changing each day. And when I fished the tournament on Grenada last Saturday, the water temp was down back to 51 degrees. So
that's a lot. Yeah.
It's just a constant variable. And as Matt was here during those 6 days, each day the fish were moving. And so we had to adjust each day. And one of the things that I talked to Matt about is when we came with those changing conditions, one of the things that I looked at was on my Lake Master map. I would call them ditches or depressions. We don't have the strong contours a lot of times in these flats, but you may have a depth change, and that depth change could be 1 inch to 6 inches. But those crappie use those as highways. As the water level changes, they are traveling these ditches and then spreading out to the flats and things. So that was one of the things that I explained to Matt that we were looking for when we went into these areas, is you followed the ditches or depressions, and then you would branch out from there.
So you guys started, the first day was in Grenada, right? Is that correct? And then day 2 was where at?
Archie Butler.
Archie Butler.
Archie Butler. Day 2 had a 61-degree water temp. Water level was around 212. We're fishing in 3 to 5 feet of water. It was March 1st. We had a goal. Once we started, Chad said, "Hey, we're gonna drop down on only big fish. You know, we're down here to catch big fish. We're only going to try to drop down on 2-pound plus fish." We got to the first area after we got off the big motor. He puts down the trolling motor, and we were like, "Hey, we're going to switch it up today," because Chad was so gracious trying to get me to get every opportunity on every big fish. I'm like, "Hey, let's switch it up, man. I want to watch you do the same thing." So we were taking turns, and he said, "But if we do see a big fish, I'm going to give you the opportunity, because the goal is a 3-pound fish, a black nose crappie, and a tagged fish." So that day, back and forth, we can get into some of these crazy numbers this day, but we came upon this. Here, Chad goes, "Here it is. Here's your chance." So I dropped down on it, and I'm talking, these bites were so aggressive. I call them handshakes. They just shake your hand. Like, they hit that rod. Those big fish were aggressive. He's like, "This is a big one. We're in 3 to 5 foot of water," and that fish is suspended, and ended up catching that fish, and it was a 262. The big fish of the day was a 270, but
75.
275. Yep, 275. That we had that one. We released that one. But we had 60 fish that we weighed. We weighed 60 fish. We had a total of 107.23 pounds, giving us a 1.79 average. And these fish looked like hubcaps.
I was going to ask, what's it look like on that screen in comparisons to what, we're used to seeing here?
The dot is looks like as big as my thumb.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can't really miss it. And of course, a lot of people have their depth constant where they can better size. But to see more of the details, I had changed my depth. I think I had my depth set at 10 foot or 9 foot. And the fish looks big as your thumb. And it's just sitting there, just having a nice day, waiting for something to swim by its mouth. And we had an absolute ball. Now, I had 2 places I wanted to fish that day. And it was like 11:30. And I was like, "Man, we really need to go to this other spot." And Matt looks at me and like, "Are you crazy?" And then we caught.
Why are we leaving these, huh?
Then we caught 3 over 2 pounds. And I'm
back to back.
Hey, I guess we're just going to sit right here all day.
We had 16 fish that day over 2 pounds, and so many in the 180 to 190 class. It was as fun of a day of fishing that you could ask for.
So one thing, the year prior, I got to spend a lot of time with you because I was watching it on live. You weren't able to go live this time as much due to weather. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we wanted to catch fish. I told him, I said, "We're catching fish. We ain't got time for that."
Yeah.
Some of those areas had real low signal, and we had 2 of the 3 days on Grenada, we had 20-mile-an-hour winds, and just the boat moving up and down. It wasn't as – we did go live one time for a little bit and caught a few fish, but it's a completely different game with all those conditions. And honestly, we got to be safe. We got to be safe. If next year
Well, next year you need to take a cameraman with you, and I will volunteer for that one.
I agree. My wife didn't get on the boat with us this year, and she did some of the video in last year. But weather-wise, we had wind to deal with. Boat control was a big key in all of it. And we talked about Matt kind of talked about the drop, the presentation. So I fish a pegged weight above my jig. So Matt originally, he's demonstrating there, he's got a pegged weight above the jig head. So Matt, what size weight is that?
The weight is a 1/8.
Hey Glenn, you can come up here. 1/8. So I typically use 3/8 to a 1/4 ounce or 1/2 ounce pegged weight. I'm using a big pegged weight above the jig head. And one thing I showed Matt is in that wind, you got to hold it steady. So with the heavier weight, I was able to move and put the jig directly above the fish a lot quicker than a lighter jig, because just imagine the line sweep that you get when you're bass fishing and stuff like that in the wind. It's the same way when you're white perch fishing, crappie fishing.
And so I end up putting 2 on mine, and that I didn't have an ounce, so I went to a 3/16 and an 1/8. And it really helped me control my bait presentation. Because just like he said, that line sweep, you might only have one chance before something affects that fish, and you don't want to mess up when it comes to any of these fish that we're chasing.
When you're chasing those trophies. So how many days were you down there, Matt?
I was down there 5 days fishing.
Okay, so we covered day 2. How about day 3?
Day 3, we went back to Grenada.
Day.
What's that?
I said day 3 was the 3-pound day, I think.
It was. That was actually a 1:45 p.m. We had 20-mile-an-hour wind. We had almost 2-foot waves coming in. We were the only boat out in this area. The only boat. They had other boats tucked up in there out of the wind. And at the time, we didn't know this was a 3-pounder when we made the drop. But, that's why everything that we lead up to has a purpose. Like that drop on that fish at 1:45 p.m. that day on March 2nd, I wasn't going to get many opportunities. I was just able to make the perfect drop, and that fish reacted, came up, hammered it. I start sounding something like big fish. He grabs that crappie monster outlaw net, and we look at half that thing coming out of the water. I'm telling you, not only did it surpass the 3-pound mark, it surpassed what it meant, emotionally. I was truly the happiest I could be fishing right there at that moment. I had put in a lot of work. We had days where we might have had a couple nice big ones get off, but all that persistence, and then I owe it all to Chad putting me right on that fish. It was just right there. We were in about 7 foot of water, and when that thing happened, it loaded up. I was using that Ghost from Power Crappie, that 15-footer, and when she hit, she gave me a big handshake, and then she put the emergency brake on, and she sat there, and we were having kind of a little tussle at first, and then got her coming up, got her in the boat. I calmed down a little bit, and next thing you know, Chad's phone goes off at about 1:46. It's one of his friends about a half a mile across the lake checking in on us. He's like, "Hey, Chad, you guys okay over there?" And he's like, well, my buddy just caught his personal best. Yeah, we're great over here. So boats a half a mile across the lake knew as I'm laying on the deck. I was laying on the deck of his boat. It was just unbelievable. I'll never forget it.
I will say that moment when, like he said, we didn't realize on the screen that it was exactly over 3 pounds. I had in my mind it was just going to be another 280, 270. When I got that fish in the net and I brought it to the boat, I just got quiet. he was sitting there, and I looked down at that fish, and then the thought came to my mind, and it's like, I think this fish is a little bit better. And I still hadn't said anything, and Matt was always like, hey, what do you think that one will go? And I would be within maybe 5/100ths of it or something like that in the past. And this time I didn't say nothing. I just looked at him. I just kept quiet, walked back there, put it on the scale. And as soon as I saw it settle on 310, it was a huge relief come over me. And I just turned the scale around, and that was what's right there. So, last year Matt came fishing with me. We had unbelievable amount of time, but I caught 2 fish over 3 pounds when he was with me. That meant I caught those fish out from under him. That's like taking your kid turkey hunting and you snatch the gun away from them and shoot the turkey. So I knew this year, I had told myself since last year, I could not do that again. I would cut my line, something. I wasn't going to do that to Matt this year. So we had a great time. And when he caught that fish, he goes, I've made it. I have made it. I'm going home on Sunday. The plan was to fish Sunday and then him go home on Monday. So on the ride home Sunday, the weather turned beautiful here. I mean, beautiful kind of day you would take the family picnicking and just pick flowers. It was beautiful. And Matt's on his way home. I'm like, Matt, we should have went fishing today. It was a beautiful day, but the whole trip was great. We didn't get to fish one day because of the weather. We actually had a tornado come north of Grenada that day, and we made the best of it that day and had a wonderful experience.
Yeah, that was day 4. So what would that make that? March 3rd, we got up early. We went to the North Mississippi Fish Hatchery. We got to take a tour of that. The woman opened it up early for us. We got there a little early. She was so thoughtful and so gracious enough to let us get in there and see it. We saw the world record crappie. It's 5 pounds, 3 ounces, caught in 1952 or 3. You get to see a lot of things that you have questions about. And the only thing is that some of the biologists, they were out there collecting walleye eggs so they could get those in the hatchery and get those into their hands and be able to work them and keep those as fertile and be able to stock those fish in the different lakes. But what an experience. After that, we went to what's the name of that marina we went to?
Midway Marine in Fulton, Mississippi, outside of Tupelo.
And Chad introduced me to John Thomason, owner of Double Seat. Got my double seat mount set up. I got everything. We picked it up there. We made quite a car ride, but day 4 it was as educational for me to get there to see that at Lake Enid, and then go to a marine and meet with John and get those double seats. So although we didn't fish, we had an amazing day. I would really recommend anybody coming down early, stop at that fish hatchery and give it a half hour. You'll learn, really appreciate a lot of things.
Yeah. It was they were getting their tanks ready for a bass spawn. A lot of information at that fish hatchery. It was my first time to go there, and I'll go back. I'm Trey, my tournament partner, youth tournament partner. He wants to go, and we're definitely going to go back through some of those things. But yeah, the one thing that I want to make sure that people understand, because right now there are so many people from out of town coming to Grenada to catch that 3-pound fish. The number of 3-pound fish are down this year. So Matt came on Monday. On Sunday, I caught 2, 339, and I think a 317 the day before. And I possibly have seen maybe 3 or 4 since then. Last year, I think I recorded 10 to 12 over 3 pounds. So if you're coming to Grenada, everybody comes with the big expectations and things. All I say is beware of the water level, the wind, and be safe. There was a boat that sank last Saturday at South Graysport. I saw, and that's probably the 3rd one that I've seen this year because of the wind and stuff. So if you're coming to Grenada, you can message me. I can give you information. It doesn't matter. I just want people to be safe, have fun, and if you catch those really, really big fish and you want to mount one, skin mount one, that's fine. But let's throw some of those other fish back, because that's the only way this lake can be number 1 in the country is releasing some of these bigger fish. But I have a gentleman here from Covington, Mississippi, Louisiana, Glenn Spale. He just showed up. He's going to fish with me for the next 2 days. And I think we're going to Archer Butler in the morning.
Awesome.
A friend of mine just sent me a picture of a 275 from Archie Butler today. So he's got his personal best, but let's go over day 5 here. We went back to Mississippi. Went back to Grenada. We were going to go to Archie Butler, but all that rain, Chad, that came up 10 feet in 2 days?
12 feet.
12, it came up 12 feet in 2 days. We'd already broke the 3-pound barrier. The boat ramp from Chad's house in Grenada is about 10 minutes away. We just said, we're going for it. We're going for broke, but we're mainly having a good time. That's what we always try to do.
The pressure's off at that point, though.
Pressure's off. And if the only pressure you have is to catch a 3-pound crappie that day, you have a golden life. I'm telling you. So, the water temperature was around 61 degrees. The water level had come up 4 feet. It was at 208 and it was at 212. Grenada had not gotten up as high as Archie Butler did yet. But we had to go through multiple profiles. And there was one fish, Chad said, okay, get ready. And I was when he says get ready, that means everyone get ready. Like, he only says it in like one voice, get ready. And it's like, oh, I'm trying to get everything going, and made first drop. That fish looked up at the bait, didn't do anything. Chad's like, change baits. Chad's following that fish, finally got that fish to stop. Drop down. Fish doesn't react, doesn't spook off, kind of swims away. He's like, change baits. Did that till the 4th time. The 4th time I put that bait down in front of that fish, she reacted differently than she did any of the other times we made good drops. So we knew we had the profile down, and we were using the minnow presentation because they are full of shad down there at that time of Mississippi. And we're talking about 5-6 inch shad. We saw them coming up out of their gullets. But on this 4th drop, on 4 different color combinations, The most important thing is to realize that is the first time that fish is seeing that color combination. So you have to think positive. And that fish turned up like it hadn't seen a bait in 2 weeks, set the hook, and that one was a 275. And it's just amazing. We didn't talk about this, though. On day one, Chad chased a fish for approximately 40 minutes. Was it about 40, Chad?
Yeah, it may have been 35 minutes.
35 minutes.
We dropped 10 baits on this fish.
So you're not going to catch every fish, but you definitely won't catch them if you go underneath them. Stay above them. You got to stay above them. You want to match your intensity of your bait to the intensity of your fish and stay above it. And Chad makes it look easy. A decorated tournament fisherman, and as soon as he retires, I'm going to beg him to get a guide license, and I'm going to make sure that all my clients get to get down there and fish with him, because he's a local celebrity up here in Central Illinois, and he lives 8 hours from us. So, if one thing that I have multiple baits every day on my trip, and I think I change baits a lot. But one of the things I took away with Chad this year is one drop, change it out. One drop, because if they're going to hit, they're going to hit, And when that fish made its mind up, again, there's another big handshake, and away we go. And we'll talk about a few of the fish that we caught. We had that 275, had a 235, 220, 187, a 182, had 10 to 12, 15 fish in the 1.6 to 1.8 range that he's like, we're not even weighing it. Get ready for the next one, and I start to feel, like kind of like I could get used to this, to end the trip on that day, we did catch that last fish. It was a 180, and she was dripping eggs out as she came out of the water into the boat. So, the water temperature that day was 61 degrees. It was fluctuating. The water level was fluctuating. And that's what you got to realize, like what Chad was saying, each and every day is different, and each and every crappie is different. Maybe that fish was born in a first stage of the egg drop during the spawn when it was born. Maybe it was mature enough at that time that the eggs are coming out. Water temperature will have a lot to do with it, but the age of the fish has a lot to do with it as well. But we had a great day, day 5, and I went home a day early. There's not many people that have permission to go on a vacation and go back a day early when they're leaving the mecca of one of the better crappie states in the world. But Chad, let's talk about the differences between fish on Grenada and Archibutla that we caught.
So on Grenada, the bite was very, very active. I would say active. When we got there, kind of had an idea where we needed to go, because I had Derek Martin and Dean just there the weekend before. So we knew where we wanted to go. When we went to Archibutla, I told Matt it's an hour and 20-minute drive from my place in Grenada to the boat ramp. So we're talking, and the only thing he knew about Archibutla was from his dad, talking about the gravel pit, things like that. But I told him, I said, the locals here called it Archer Brutal because the bite is so difficult. I said, but when we figure it out, it's going to be epic. So it took us about 45 minutes to figure out the bait that they wanted. And once we figured that out, it was game on. Now, most of the days, when I go to a lake, if it's been greater than a day or so since I went there, I will have several baits out, a top hat baits, and I'll lay them. I have a beat down double mount, and so my hummingbird's kind of flat. That's got my map on it, and I'll lay those top hat jigs out on that hummingbird, and as I go through the fish until I figure out the right one, I'm sitting there changing them out, throwing them in the bottom of the boat. But that's how I normally start out my day, is that. Now, as far as the baits, Goldfinger from the top hat in the muddy water is gold and orange. The Sleeping Beauty, we had it on an orange head, and then Sleeping Beauty is purple and white. We had the purple and chartreuse is the Boondocks. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And then I had some other baits that are, I cannot talk about them. I told Matt, he swore secrecy on these baits. But all I would say is they're not intended for crappie fishing. They are bass lures.
Really?
And they're 3.5 inches long.
Well, when you guys got fish the size of our bass, I mean, a crappie the size of our bass, you can use bass baits.
Yeah. So when I brought those baits out, I told Matt, I said, this is top secret. He was going to his grave on that one, but it's all about changing up. I like to do something different, maybe different than the next boat that's fishing right next to me. Why I love the top hats is they're so versatile in the profile, and there's a certain time of year that the fish want a big bait, and pre-spawn they want that big bait. Now sometimes during the summer I'll use those 3.5 inch baits in the summer, but a lot of times everybody thinks you need to downsize. It's just go try it. You try that bigger bait, and if it doesn't work, you take it off, throw it in the bottom of the boat, and go try something else. So when you go to a lake, don't think it has to be this bait, this presentation, this water depth, because let the fish tell you that.
That's right.
One of the things as we come to a conclusion here, each fishery is different. Each lake is going to fish different. The fish on Archie Butler, we caught one that was about 12.5 inches, and I was like, that is a monster. And Chad's like, well, we'll weigh it. It weighed 154 at 12.5 inches, and it looked like a football. Like those. Now we have a mutual acquaintance, Chad, of Eric Cagle. The other day, he posted a picture on Facebook of one that it's as close to a circle that you can see a fish. And Chad and I kind of knew maybe where he was fishing. We might not know, but those fish in Grenada are longer, and they got the weight. But these fish on Archie Butler, they look like a free safety that could play middle linebacker. They are jacked up. They got shoulders, and they don't want to come out of the water once they're hooked. And I promise you, each and every person needs to experience fishing with Chad Rogers, and you'll know what I'm talking about. You get to laughing and carrying on, and next thing you know, you've got over 100 pounds of crappie released. And we did a lot of those. We didn't have anybody tagging fish with us, but we did the Crappie Forever. We showed all us releasing all those fish. We caught over 200 fish in those days, targeting only big fish. I did take my 3-pounder home with me, and we kept 5 fish. So we only kept 6 fish out of well over 200, and we ate the 5 smallest fish that we basically caught in that week. So, next year when he gets me on a 325 or a 402, it's going to be a skin mount, a replica mount. Excuse me. I wanted to have my first 3-pounder be a skin mount, and that's what I decided. And I couldn't thank Chad anymore. Everyone needs to wait for him to retire and then start his next job.
Yeah, I agree. I got 3 years. I don't want to wish my life away, but I'm looking forward to it. I enjoy taking people fishing. If you go with a guide that's live scoping, be patient with them. Listen to what they're saying and pay attention. Because it is very difficult to instruct somebody else to catch the fish on live scope that I do naturally. And that was one of the things that Matt and I talked about is I'm like, just listen to me. Don't watch the screen. So if you go with somebody, be patient with that guide and listen to what they say.
I told Chad, I said, I know what my clients feel like now. left, because when you're running the boat, your mind and everything is in harmony. And I'm looking down, trying to feel like I'm running the machine, and he's already got the trolling motor turned, and I'm 8 feet away from the target. So like Chad said, if you're going to be down there and just have your best chance, listen to those tips and that advice. That's how you're going to have your best success.
Well, guys, hey, we need to jump off here. I appreciate you guys sharing your story today with us, all the tips and tricks that you guys. I hope we can do this again soon. I want to make this a regular thing. You guys are full of knowledge that guys like me just love to get. So thank you guys for sharing today. Appreciate it, and hope to do it again soon.
Absolutely. Anytime we can talk crappie fishing, hopefully I'm available.
All right.
Oh, in closing, I did catch a black-nosed crappie with Chad Rogers in Mississippi. One of the coolest fish I ever caught, and it was about 10 inches long.
All right, guys.
Hey,
so
Matt,
thanks again. Go ahead.
What's out, Matt, with what you always say?
Come to Lake with a positive attitude and leave Lake with a positive attitude and introduce a young adult to this beautiful sport of fishing, help keep that legacy going. This is Matt, Chad, and Dustin from Flat Branch Outfitters signing out. Everyone have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Later.